one of the greatest gifts my dad gave me was he at a very early age. I remember my dad telling me to think for myself and how much value original thought has. And, you should have opinions on things, and, it's okay that if your opinion on something differs from somebody else's, and you don't want to kind of look like the rest of the pack, et cetera. And I think from early on, I think the three of us really kind of understood that life was meant to be lived, with a machete in your hand, chopping through the jungle, and choosing which direction you want to go, and actually, experiencing the consequences of making the wrong decisions. And, that was another thing. We weren't really sheltered from a lot of, there wasn't like a fallback plan. It was just, we dealt with all the consequences that we got ourselves into. And I can tell you, I got into a lot of, trouble. But I think now looking back, I'm really appreciative of it because it's, obviously it's made, you're kind of programmed pretty fully baked by the time you're 5 or 6 years old.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Men of Forge. Today I'm recapping my interview with Cameron Doody. Man, just that quote alone, I could sit here and harp on, and which I probably will. That's the reason why I put it up there. And you can hear that full quote if you go back to episode 74 and listen to that interview. It's very early on. It's around minute 5. And it's just, there's something about that you could just want, knowing Cameron, especially in college, knowing and then hearing more of his story, more of what he's been doing, building bellhops as well as helping other startups, and that mindset. It's it was just easy to see why he is where he is. That mindset, that cultivating of that environment in his thinking as well as in his behaviors, that thinking that led to and that training ground he found growing up is so fascinating to me. And I very much relate in that when I finally started giving myself the permission to fail, to try things out, like he said, machete in hand. There's just so much to, the being willing, having that mindset to just continue to fall forward. If any of y'all have checked out my Instagram or listened to this podcast, that's a constant theme throughout my guests. A lot of things when I quote them or put on quotes that I just hear, the best form of success is those who are willing to fall forward, to make mistakes, learn from them, move forward, don't overanalyze, don't constantly live in that fear of failure, don't try to avoid the pain, the anxiety of failure, but actually embrace it, learn from it, move forward. That took me probably a long time. I was 29 or 30 until I still really embraced that. I had a great mentor in Andy Mason. Y'all could check him out at AuthenticSolutions.com. Andy runs a nonprofit as well called Heaven in Business. He's mentoring leaders. And that's being in hit the space with him really. If any of y'all know my story, that was so valuable for me because I finally felt the permission, just not having to be perfect. Because I wasn't perfect, I would hide a lot in many situations. In relationships, whether it was in work, friendship. Just across the board. When you're afraid of failure, you're not willing to really live in the truth. You're not willing to show your true self. You're not willing to embrace the chaos that is life. Life is chaotic. And we find ways to bring order in that chaos, but that's only by embracing the chaos. And the desire to live in that freedom, not only as Cameron got into and talked about financial freedom and eating what you kill and having that driver in your life of just living that freedom and wanting a life by your own terms, that truly comes from a mental approach before it is a material and physical reality. It starts in your mind and in your heart of really desiring that, and the being the willingness to step in environments that are unsure. And as much as I probably wanted that at a very young age, I just didn't know how to go get it. I didn't know how to think that way. And, my adult life has been that training ground. In many ways, I'm very jealous of him for feeling like he had that permission at a young age, that he had someone sit next to him and just kind of say, hey, you got to have original thought. You got to be against the trend to some degree. I think like a lot of us, we grew up in environments where it was like, hey, stay the course, do what the person in front of you is doing, don't step out of line, and think it'll go well with you. You'll be a good person, you'll have a good life, no one will ever be mad at you, and that's just not the truth. I think everyone that we truly admire had their own original thought. I think there's no doubt about my mind, like we got to have staples in our life of good things that we do on a regular basis that is good things. But if those become like, in a lot of ways, religious, they become like we have to do it or we're going to, end up in the gutter somewhere. Live in this fear-based mentality of what happens if we don't do these things. Like be a nice person or, all these different staples we have in our society, whether you're part of a religious society or even a non-religious one. We all have them. We all have these ideas that this is what you're supposed to do, and I deserve something if I do this, and that's just nonsense. To truly live that open-handed, childlike approach to your life is so valuable and healthy as an individual that it cultivates in other people. That's something, I think, if y'all, I highly recommend going and checking out Cameron's Instagram page. It's Cam Doody. He's doing the same thing that he grew up with. He's doing that with his daughters. He's trying to create that in his new business. In Brickyard. If you can go to his website, justlaybrick.com. There's a little blurb about it, what he's trying to do. It's like burning the ships behind you and keep moving forward. You just got to learn by doing, learn by failure. You make mistakes, you get feedback, and you keep growing and you keep learning. But if we kind of sit there and isolate and put ourselves in a hole and think, oh, I'm going to just be okay, and everything's going to go well with me, and I'll wake up, I'll come out of the hole every now and then and reap the rewards of being in the hole. or just doing the same thing every day. It just doesn't work like that. And I think we all have different personalities and things that definitely fit a more structured environment than others. But I think you got to take Cameron's words to heart and really find that value in original thought, standing out from the pack, having opinions that are different from others, and really valuing that part of yourself. And it doesn't mean that person, everyone has to agree with you, but it means you're willing to be different. You're willing to think differently. And how better we are as people, as a community, as country, communities, families, family groups, because when we value those things, when we value that in others. I know I've learned, like there's just the whole concept of, I keep hitting on it, and y'all may think I'm hammering this like a drum, but the word exposure always stands out to me. It's like we got to expose ourselves to different people, places, and things. When we experience people that have different upbringings than us, different backgrounds, different skin color, different religious experiences, different churches, just grew up in different environments, homes, different places in the U.S. and even the world. When we're exposed to that, our gaze begins to widen, and we can take the good things, and we can learn to have discernments, chew up the meat and spit up the bones, and then we're able to use that for our benefit and the benefit of then our people of our similar background and culture. We can actually give, and then as well as give back to others. It's just, It makes life so much more fun, so much more open-handed. I have the core belief that all truth is God's truth. Not all wisdom is new wisdom. Like, we need to go find, like, being around people that just have different experiences, go to different places and experience different things, just awakens so much of our mind to then be healthier, live more free, less isolated, less living in our little silos, echo chambers, that don't actually produce truth. They present some version of it. So anyway, there's just something so powerful just about that first quote. And if you see all the other 3 quotes I put on the website, mentorforge.com/guest interviews -cam, /cam -Doody. You just go to guest interviews and you'll see his face and you just click on it. And you'll see I have 4 other quotes, and they all like kind of build on each other, because he kind of talks about his driver has never been satisfied for money, but his freedom. He talks about building startups, and it's about a truly great startup is not a straight line thinking. You got to be able to burn things down to rebuild them back up. And then what was the other quote he had? Let's see. Oh, and yeah, he just talked about that, 80% of people today in the startup world have the wrong reasons, and you just got to start with your pure motive in mind, have the right expectations, being willing to fail, kind of know it's going to fail, and be willing to give something up, that you'll be ahead of those 80% people that are in there for the wrong reasons. So, I'm trying to think of my own personal story here, of just so much of that journey of going on exactly what he's saying and trying to create that in myself, that desire to, live my life open-handed, live my life excited. Obviously, we close hand a handful of things, but they're just not as much as we think. All these things we think that we're just like cemented in aren't really that cemented. They're not that. They really aren't. Well, one, they're either probably not that important, or 2, they're just not that. Actually, they really aren't. We say that we stand on this, but not really. But there is always that small handful of things that we just matters most to us, that we got like, this is the thing that matters to me. But then everything else, just start living and falling forward, figuring it out, meeting people, having different experiences. Just makes life so much more fun when you don't think you have it all figured out. So, that was such a journey for me in my late 20s and 30s, and I'm thankful I was put around people to really challenge that thinking in my mind and let me, I can even admit today, I don't know if I told Cam this, but like early on, there's definitely days that his personality, his way of thinking offended me, because he was just so childlike in everything he did. He was just so excitable and trying new things, and sometimes it was great, I think he can, it was, but I now looking back, I value that mindset. Like, I get why he was the way he was, or is the way he is. So, hope you enjoyed this episode. Oh yeah, and I meant to put at the end here, so this is what I'm going to do, is, a little surprise piece here. So I mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, if you go back to episode 74, my interview with Cam, I talked about the zipline day. So I'll end with this story if y'all are interested in a little fun little college story of mine. So one boring day, it was like wintertime, late winter, early spring. If any of you went to an SEC school, when it's non-football season, there's just not as much action happening. So you got to get creative on the weekends to find some fun stuff to do. So, it was like, it was a little chilly outside, and we found, I can't remember, there was a platform on the tree already built in the back of one of our buddies' house. And we're just hanging out there, and it's kind of already early afternoon. Like, it's not like it's like we planned this out. So we decided that we're going to build a zip line in this guy's backyard. because there's already a platform like 40 feet in the air. So we're going to build a zip line. And so we all like went to Home Depot, got zip lines. Some of us drove around trying to figure out like mattresses or something on the side of the road we can like land on. I think we found one, which we took out of somebody's like front yard. And I think they were leaving that for a friend to pick up or something. Ridiculous. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of crazy stories that I think part of this story that, now looking back, I'm like, did that really happen? But anyway, so we're in the middle of the night, like, and it's like the backyard is really not all of their backyard. Like, so we have to like go over a creek, and like, it's on like public property, and we're cutting down all these like little trees that might scrape our feet, I guess is what we're thinking. We didn't really think this very far. So finally, it's like late at night, and we finally finish. And somehow, I don't know, it definitely was no drawing straws. It was like a consensus thing between like 6, 7 guys in this backyard doing all this, that I was the guinea pig. Which, those of you who know me, I guess that's kind of par for the course. That's kind of a little on brand for me. So, how we got up to set the zip line, I think we used a ladder and the top of somebody's truck. So somehow I think we built pegs for me to get up there. So I'm on top. So the zip line's hooked up, and we kind of did this big countdown. And I like, in most zip lines, especially crappy little ones thrown together on the day of, you don't jump off. You kind of slowly slide off so it stays on the line. So the zip line, the zip actually stays on the line. But I jumped off. And of course, thankfully we bought a pretty nice little zip, because what happened was it came off the track and stuck me on, the little wheels on the track. It came off that, but it stayed on the zip. And so but it just stopped. And I go kind of like flying forward, but I'm holding on. But I'm I'm like 3 or 4 feet away from the platform, hanging there 40 feet in the air. And if any of you guys out there know people who had friends in college, a group of guy friends, they're not, in this moment, they're not really necessarily prone to help in this situation. What they tend to do, and this is what I'm guessing, Cameron's on the ground, I guess, laughing on me. He showed up late. So yeah, there's like 6 or 7 guys not doing a thing while I'm hanging 40 feet in the air, laughing, not doing anything, like falling on the ground, laughing at me as I'm hanging there from the zip line. And I'm hanging, and I'm like sitting there waiting for them to do something, but they didn't do it, of course. And so I have to somewhat reach back my foot and try to get back on this platform. Granted, we didn't even really test out this platform. It just was in the tree. I guess that previous owners had like a tree house or something. So I'm trying to reach back, and I'm literally I'm barely getting there. And so if I get my foot there, then I could kind of reach up and grab the wire and I guess pull myself up. Which after it felt like 5 or 10 minutes, but it was probably only 1 or 2. I somehow did it, and I got back on, and I am like looking on them, like, what were y'all doing? Y'all just sitting there laughing at me. But anyway, so that happened. It was fun, and then here, let me end the story with this. And so eventually, a couple weeks later, somehow they get it back off the track, and instead of one of them jumping up, they called me and got me back on there in the middle of the day, and I find the zip, jump down the zip, and it starts going. And as it's going, and granted, we're going over a creek, we're going over little stumps that we cut And so there are little spikes in the air. Did not think this far because it wasn't the middle of the night when we did this. There are little spikes in the air. And the zip line doesn't go to the end of the zip because clearly we didn't have it tight enough. It starts dropping down, and I'm literally going through a minefield of wooden spikes, jumping as the zip. And somehow don't fall on one and it doesn't stab me in the side. And once again, funny, laughing story. But yeah, that was a little bit of me in college. Fun little weekend. Got to get creative. So now it's a fun story. So I think that's another reason why you should live life open-handedly, excited to live, to eat what you kill, live free, die hard, I guess. Thankfully, I don't do that stuff as much anymore. Still love a good little dumb fun. I don't know. I guess I'm human, or maybe just a dude. But anyway, I think I'm done. Make sure you rate and review the podcast when you get the chance. Check out mentorforge.com. Jump on the emailing list. I'm working to do that better, to stay in contact with y'all, provide meaningful content. Got a lot of great episodes already lined up for you coming this April and even into May. Really excited. That's through podmatch.com if you wanted to. It's a really cool site that if you're a podcast host, recommend you jumping on. You can click that link in mentorforge.com. It's underneath my podcast drop down. Click on that. I get a little referral fee for that. So anyway, can't believe that's been a long time to tell that story. Anyway, appreciate y'all. See y'all next time.